106.7 WIZN. It's Van Halen and Unchained. Heard The Who before that. I'm Joe Vega here with you in your Wednesday Rock and Ride Home. Earlier, I was talking about this judgment in Oklahoma, Johnson & Johnson being ordered to pay $572 million due to the opiate crisis. And I thought I'd bring my friend Ben Berry on from Martin Harding and Mazzotti to talk about it. Of course, you can call Martin Harding and Mazzotti at any time at 1-800-LAW-1010 or go online to 1-800-LAW-1010.com. Ben, how you doing?
Joe, how are you?
I'm good. So I know you know the details of this story. Johnson & Johnson being ordered to pay $572 million due to the opiate crisis. My question is that even a lot of money to a company like Johnson & Johnson?
It hurts, I'm sure. But, I think they did something like $81 billion in revenue last year. So
I was going to say.
It's a large sum of money. It certainly is headline worthy. So, yeah, I think Johnson & Johnson is going to feel it. I think looking forward for Johnson & Johnson, they have a lot of pending litigation. There's a federal lawsuit, and there's, I think, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 other cases that are pending around the country in state courts.
Right.
So while 572 in and of itself may not be a large sum to a company like Johnson & Johnson, certainly if all of their verdicts are this size, then yes, I think they have a much bigger problem.
Where does this money go?
It depends. I don't know that that's clear as of this point in time, but there are examples in the past that we can look at. For example, big tobacco was kind of hit pretty hard in the late 90s.
Right.
A lot of that money goes to research, other foundations and things of that nature. So it's not really clear. I don't know who will be overseeing the distribution of that money and to what state programs. A lot of times it goes into things that have nothing to do with the opioid crisis, for example.
But the important thing is that this sets precedent, right?
It certainly sets a mile mark for the type of money that could be levied against Johnson & Johnson. Where this goes, I don't know, but certainly, I think Johnson & Johnson has to be aware of what is coming down the road, and I think Johnson & Johnson has to be acutely aware of what the public sentiment is and how the tides are changing. It's a very interesting case. It's very nuanced with respect to the arguments that are made that tether Johnson & Johnson and pharmaceutical companies to the opioid crisis. It's very interesting how they're tied into it. Certainly, they had deceptive practices, and there's a lot going on there, but ultimately, we have a crisis on our hands here in the States, and it's got to be dealt with. Litigation is part of it, but there's another community caretaking function that has to take place as well. Hopefully some of this money will go to those programs and do some good work.
Right, and Johnson & Johnson, they're not the only company out there making opiates. Are other companies who are doing it, are they subject to a similar lawsuit?
Generally speaking, they are part of this lawsuit, and for example, in the Oklahoma case, this case that we're discussing right now, there were other pharmaceutical companies that settled the case prior to trial.
So
they offered some settlement money. That settlement was accepted by the plaintiffs, the state, and Johnson & Johnson said, we're going to trial. We will take our chances in the court of law to see what kind of monetary damages are associated with our wrongdoing.
All right, well, thanks for the info, Ben.
Joe, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for calling.
Ben Berry from Martin Harding and Mazzotti. Again, you can call them at any time at 1-800-LAW-1010 or go online to 1-800-LAW-1010.com. Mel Allen taking over from here. He's got music from Billy Squier and Metallica next.